Welcome to Hemi and to my second installment here at Hemi of Dancing While Black, which is an initiative I started in 2012, inspired by a lot of things with roots in a lot of places, but that year, I think in particular, inspired by Ishmael Houston's Platforms project at Dance Space and my wondering why not more of this. So I'm using what platforms that I feel like I've been given and to help illuminate the work of diverse Black dance artists across a spectrum of practices, movement practices, with a spectrum of roots and branches, but connected, I think, to the same tree. So tonight, we are going to be featuring the work of some people I consider friends and great colleagues, and whose work I admire a tremendous amount, who are, I think, pushing practices and who are in emergent places within their practices, whose work, I think, is asking a lot of questions of itself, and really asking a lot of questions about what it means to build community and build artistic work in sort of symbiosis with one another. So Ebony, Noelle Golden, Adia Whitaker, and Rashida Bumbray will be sharing their work this evening, talking about their work in discussion with one another, and also will be in discussion with the larger group. I think that's all I really want to say right now, and we'll sort of flow through the evening. I just want to, in the spirit of transparency, there are refreshments outside, and I just want you to know they're available in case you get thirsty. Also, there's a group of students here who are with a class, and at a certain point they all have to leave, so there's going to be sort of an exodus of about 20 people, and that shifts the space energetically, so I just want you to know that that's going to be happening. And I hope that you enjoy yourself and really listen and look for spaces of connection with work that you might be interested in doing or that you're curious about, and really make space and time to hear and feel the work that these women are making and doing. Great, thank you. We're going to start with Ebony. Ebony's going to be sharing work and then talking about her work, and we'll begin there.
This is a poem, I guess, that reflects living in Newark, but I guess living in any ghetto. It's called Dope. Yes. Yes. Amen. Ray light, morning fire, lynch yet. Yes, the pain in dreams comes again. Race pain, people are people everywhere. Yeah, ooh, 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 yeah, ooh, 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 yeah. Black, I pray are people, yes, people, every people, most people, ooh, 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 yeah, ooh, 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 most people in pain. Yes, the pain and pain today.
Oh wow, it must be the devil. Oh wow, it must be the devil. It must be the devil. It must be the devil. Oh wow, yeah, devil. Oh wow, must be the devil. Must be the devil. Must is be the devil. It can't be Rockefeller. It can't be him, no Lord. It can't be DuPont, no Lord. Can't be no Lord, no way, Nassau, no way, Jose. Can't be the rich folks. It's good to us. It's good to us. It's good to us.
It's good to us. It's good to us. I know it's possible, so I see it on channel 7. I see it on channel 9. I see it on channel 4 and 2 and 5. The rich folks good to us. Poor folks ain't shit. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Oh wow. Everything gonna be different after we die. We ain't gonna be hungry. Ain't gonna be pain. Ain't gonna be suffering. Won't go through this again after we die. After we die. Oh wow. After we die, that's all gonna be good. Have all the money we need after we die. Have all the food we need after we die. People everywhere, yeah, ooh, 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 yeah, ooh, 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 yeah. Money in the plate, don't be late, don't have to wait. gonna be in heaven after you die. You're gonna get all you need once you're gone. Yes, sir. I heard it on the Jeffersons. I heard it on the rookies. I swallowed it whole on roots. Wasn't it nice? You're gonna get all you need. Slavery was so cool. And all you had to do was wait till now that you mention it, just gotta stop living. Go back to work and lay back just a little while longer till you pass. It's all gonna be all right. Once you're gone, give me that last bit of silver you got stashed there, sister. Give me that dust now, brother man. It'll be okay on the other side. Your soul be clean, be washed pure white. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, wow. Now go back to work. Go to sleep. Yes, go to sleep. Go back to work. Yes. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Yes. Yes. Amen. This is a poem, I guess, that reflects living in Newark, but
Great. So I'm going to ask each artist to share work and then talk a little bit about the work they're doing right now before we get into a larger conversation.
Thank you. Hey, y'all.
Hey.
I'm Ebony. I'm from Houston. I live in Harlem. I'm glad to be with y'all tonight. I'm just going to say a few things. What you just saw was pre-processed work. We've been working for a few hours, actually, on a multimedia performance project that I don't know where it's going, but I'm just being called to do it right now. And the tentative title is Freedom All. I don't know if that's going to stick, but right now we're just working with what it means to be free, what it means to be liberated, and what personal and political freedom, spiritual freedom, looks like, sounds like, and feels like. We haven't gotten to the freedom part yet. So what you saw was like this living purgatory. The folks that performed, Kelly Thomas, Taja Lindley, Allison Kibbe, and Katrina DeWeese, 3 of those folks are members of Body Ecology. Allison isn't. And right now, this is a pre-Body Ecology piece. I don't know if the sisters are going to want to do it. It's not. It's just what's in my head right now. So if you want to know more about what's going on with Body Ecology or my work, it's on Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff. We can talk more later. That's it.
Then I'm going to ask you something about Body Ecology, because we're all in here, because I'm not going on Facebook right now to look it up. So I'm curious, first of all, the name, I guess, Body Ecology, if you could talk a little bit about where that came from and how what it has to do with the work you're making and how you're making work.
So the work that I've been building over probably about the last decade, it comes from a curriculum and community performance art curriculum called the Body Ecology Performing Cultural Arts Direct Action. And there have been different incarnations, but really what the work is about, it's about a deep investigation and practice around what it means for collectives of people. Mostly my work is with Black women, but it extends beyond Black women, but collectives of people coming together to figure out what an ecology is for them and how they want to maintain and use that and activate that through performance, through dialogue, through media making, food, quilting. And the iterations that started this actually began in DC with the collective. I began there and mounted several community performances there, then traveled to North Carolina, and it's been called different things. Different people have been a part of the process, but the folks who are a part of Body Ecology now all came together for a community-based performance residency and decided from that residency that they wanted to build a performance community. So it kind of stuck about 5 years ago. So that's what's happening now. And it's just important to think about how performance, for me, it's important to think about how performance is a part of a holistic practice of sustainability and wellness. And when you think about how performance helps some of us go from an abstract idea to something real and tangible in space, it is a way of visioning, it's a way of transforming, it's a way of highlighting what's happening in our real time and how we want to shift and change those things and amplify certain things. So, yeah.
Ebony, Rashida, do you want to share next?
Yeah, and I'm wondering if it's okay if I actually talk first. So I just want to say thank you again to Paloma and to Adia and Ebony for sharing space, and I'm really honored to be here. And because I'm not showing a live performance, I just want to talk a little bit about the collective that I work with and some of the just sort of the chain of transmission that it comes from. And so Diaspora Collective is the name of the group. And most of our collaborations up until now have been around one major work. And this major work is the ring shout. And so the most recent iteration of that ring shout is titled Run Mary Run. And so the clip that I'm going to show is from Run Mary Run when it was presented during the last Whitney Biennial during Jason Moran and Alicia Hall Moran's 5-day residency, which was called Bleed. The collective itself is made up of a community of cultural workers, dancers, visual artists, curators, filmmakers, musicians, and scholars. And so everybody sort of has a different point of entry. Most of us are movers, I would say, but I don't know if everyone would define themselves as a dancer. But we do sort of come, with our different sort of approaches to the material. And the specific chain of transmission for this group is through a professor named Adia Sharpley at Oberlin College. And she actually started a company called Dance Diaspora at Oberlin in 1990, or 91 actually. And most of the people in this group are alumni of that company and of Oberlin College. And then it also extends to people who are, friends and community of those of us who came through that sort of direct line. But also those friends and community are usually people who have a certain connection, whether it's through, their cultural background or their sort of, I found a way to say this actually, their cultural background or their political sort of directives that they have, as artists or just as people in the world. And so many of those are people who are sort of grounded or coming out of the global South. So whether that's, the continent or the West Indies or, the South here, South Carolina, North Carolina. I'm from Washington, D.C. I would consider that the South also. And so to talk about a little bit about the actual artworks or performances that we make, this ring shout is specifically, I would call it site-specific or site-sensitive. And so it sort of functions in response to whatever that particular environment is. So like, for example, and let me just say that first and foremost, it's an active ritual for healing. So that's sort of the purpose of it. And it sort of functions as a dance and as a performance, but we're all there to like heal ourselves, heal each other, heal everybody who's in, in the space or that can hear it. And so what we've sort of done with this sort of new world ritual of the ring shout, which is essentially a counterclockwise circle where you're shuffling your feet and there's a call and response song that in this context are spirituals, but this is sort of a universal, I think, unifying form for African people, throughout the new world when we showed up with different contexts and different traditions that we were able to sort of unite on, yes, this is a circle, yes, we're going to move the spirit, and this is the way we're going to do it. And it's sort of distilled into using the stick to keep the rhythm when the drums were banned, so that is like, you know, a transformation of the drum. And then the call and response became spirituals because we were in the Christian context, but we also know that many of the slaves who had a Muslim background used the ring shout as a way of sort of, you know, thinking about their pilgrimage to Mecca and making that walk around the Kaaba, which is also done in a counterclockwise structure, knowing that they would never be able to do that. And so, you know, just finding a unifying way of our own spiritual practice, and clearly traditional African religions drive a lot of these forms. So while you'll see them now, the master company that is still performing this is called the McIntosh County Shouters, and we sort of take a lot of our, you know, harmonic vocabulary from them, as well as the form, which they have really sort of, I guess, kept going so that we can kind of see what it may have looked like over time. And so we definitely reference them and definitely also give them credit for what they're doing to sort of hold that down. And we sort of shift it to where each dancer goes into the center of the circle. And so I would say that that is one of the ways that we have adapted it, as well as including contemporary songs. So we use a Mos Def song, we use a Parliament Funkadelic song, just to sort of show the way that these Southern songs are still at play in contemporary music and Black music in general. So yeah, so to get to this Whitney video, we performed various site-specific versions of this at Project Row Houses in Houston, Texas. And that was done a year after Hurricane Katrina, when many New Orleans folks were actually in the 3rd Ward in Houston. So we had a house that was curated by an artist, Robert Pruitt, and most of the artists during that round were also sort of thinking about Katrina, because that was on everybody's minds at that moment. And so our piece was called Sign of the Judgment, a shout house for Katrina, and sort of used that music to also do healing workshops for people, so people could show up. And you know, there were people from New Orleans who showed up. One woman, you know, had us all in tears because she said, I knew this was our house before I even walked in. And one of the things that we did was sort of plaster the walls with the press images, because I felt like there was a lack of dignity in the images that were you know, disseminated in the media of people who were suffering. And so we wanted to sort of like just put a healing on those images. And so we did those workshops and we did the performances there. And then we also have done it at NYU actually in a few classes. So like Kamal Brathwaite's magical realism class, when he was teaching a course called Magical Realism, Amazonia, and the Coral Plantation. He spelled coral C-H-O-R-A-L. And sort of, were you in that class? Okay. And so we did a site-specific ritual for around magical realism, and also in Michelle Wallace's Dora Neale Hurston class. And at the Studio Museum, we've done it during a show called Challenge of the Modern, which looked at African Americans and modernism, and one section of that looked at images that sort of dealt with faith and religion. And so that sort of takes us to the video that I'm going to show, which is actually, we sort of use this, it's grounded in the ring shout, but it's also using a directive of the political reality of the moment to sort of speak through the ritual. And so in this piece, it was Mother's Day, and I couldn't help but think about Sabrina Fulton and, you know, the loss of Trayvon Martin and now Jordan Davis. And so we signify those names in the shout as well. So I'll show you a clip. I'll show you the intro and then sort of go through.
Thank you. Yes.
I want to Crystal Boyd, who's one of the collective members. You saw her in the video. It is your turn.
Okay. Yes, you know, when you sit in front of a room full of people, it's kind of get all like,
You have to sit, you walk around.
Yes, I just feel like, okay, everybody's looking at me. But it's been a long day. I needed that though. That was amazing. So I guess what I want to say very briefly before we do our thing is that my name is Adia Whitaker. I'm the artistic director of a company called Ase Dance Theatre Collective. We focus on neo-folklore of the African diaspora. So I think a lot of our work is centered around being present with the fact that we're still the people from the place trying to survive, and that this is ring shouts, and my particular area of focus, Afro-Haitian dance, is also folklore, survival music, and survival dance. We used to do all these things a long time ago. Our ancestors used to do them, and so I think a lot of the times younger generations don't get hyped off folklore because they're like, oh, that's what the old people do. I don't really want to put on the frock. I need to get light, you know. So my whole work has been about trying to get younger generations to honor their folklore and also to learn folklore. I think maybe I'm one of the last Dewey Decimal System people, you know, before the internet came and everything started moving really fast. So I'm finding that I'm a little bit nervous about who's going to come behind us to take these traditions, because as I get older, I'm like, okay, I need the young people, especially the ones in the African diaspora, to jump up and take it. So I'm from the Bay Area, my family's from South Carolina, and I moved here to kind of link with other diasporans. And so about the piece that we're going to do is very much a work in progress. Yeah, I work in a lot of layers. So part of it is about how natural disasters are reshaping folklore in the African diaspora. So a little bit of what Rashida was talking about. Part of it is about the story of King Oba and Igbo's landing and how the Igbos walked into the sea in Georgia. And then the other part is because when I was in Africa, I saw a lot of the throwback Jesus, like the blonde Jesus. And so it was very interesting to me to see a sea full of dark brown people fall on the ground to the throwback Jesus. So my ancestors felt like they needed to say something about that.
Dear white Jesus, stop standing over me.
Dear white Jesus, stop standing over me. Oh, you won't leave my people alone. Now we can't find our way home. Dear white Jesus, please just leave us alone. Broken bottles, trees, sheets to the wind, earthquakes, hurricanes, gotta do it all again. Lord, 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 gotta do it all again. Lord, 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 gotta do it all again. Lord, 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 gotta do it all again. Lord, 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 gotta do it all again. Shallow water now, shallow water now. Oh, say walk my way, shallow water now. My big moon, they come soon. Oh, say walk my way, shallow water now. My big moon, they come soon. Oh, say walk my way, shallow water now. Dear white Jesus, stop standing over me. Dear white Jesus, stop standing over me. Oh, you won't leave my people alone. Now we can't find our way home. Dear white Jesus, please just leave us alone. Dear white Jesus, stop standing over me. Dear white Jesus, stop standing over me. Oh, you won't leave my people alone. Now we can't find our way home. Dear white Jesus, dear white Jesus. Shallow water now, say what's my place. Shallow water now, shallow water now, shallow water now. Oh, say what's my place. Shallow water now, my big moon, come soon. Say what's my place.
Dear white Jesus, please just leave us alone.
Thank you. Yeah, the big group, I know you have to leave shortly, so I'm just acknowledging this part of our evening is of sharing the beginnings of work, and now we're going to start a little bit more conversation among us. I've talked with all three women many times about their work, and more specifically leading up to this. We had some conversations that I thought were really interesting, separate conversations in which some themes that ran through each of their work kind of came up, or some things that they're grappling with. But one of the first things is the title of this evening is Dancing While Black Collectives Action. And collective has there are multiple ways of thinking about, I guess, what a collective is or how a collective operates. And so I'd like to kind of open it up to talk a little bit about something that came up in each of my conversations with each of you, around a collectivism, of community building, the ways in which family, community, and nation building all came up thematically within your work was really, and our conversations was really interesting to me. So can you talk a little bit about what being a collective, two of you have collective in the titles of your ensembles, and so I'm curious about what and how collectivism shows up in your way of working, in your practice, and in your philosophy about why you're making work and who you're making work with.
Well, I feel like, there was kind of an organic lineage coming out of Oberlin. So, like, I graduated in 2000, Crystal's 2010. So there was already a range just in terms of, like, people who had been through Adenike's program, and all of us were moving to New York. And so it just sort of seemed like, well, we are all artists, we all have something to say, we all have a similar sort of training and, sort of, like I said, a chain of transmission. And so, anytime that I was invited to do something, I just sort of reached for the people that I knew already had the vocabulary. But then it started to grow because as we would have conversations with people, like there's another woman, Serena Muti-Reed, who's not here and lives in Philadelphia, but her family's from Alabama, and they do the long meter hymns, line singing, and she had done a lot of sort of recording of her uncle, leading these songs, and she also is a filmmaker, and so we were just having conversations with her, and she wanted to teach us some of the songs, so it kind of has extended like in that way, but like I said, it came organically out of our specific teacher, and then sort of started to shift out of that. And I think, we're still grappling with what it means to be a collective, just to be transparent. I mean, Adenike is the director of Dance Diaspora. I'm the director of Dance Diaspora Collective. That blurs at times depending on, whose sort of idea it is at the moment, what we're actually working on. And the dream for the collective is really for that any of the artists who are involved, if they have something they want to make, that the people, the community would support them in that. So that's sort of the dream. And like I said, we've only been working on this one major piece as all together, but it's starting to expand. So I'm working on something for eMoves, which is like extremely stressing me out right now, but that's me and Crystal. And so, that's just like very small, but it's still in my mind part of that collective functionality.
So I'm from the Bay Area, and It's very, when you grow up in the Bay Area, it's arts and act, like there's no separation between the artists and activism. Like we grow up in like rising youth for social equity. I was a Zulu queen, I was a Zulu nation, you know, I slept on the ground, I was, you know, proposition this, that. And so I was in all these collectives growing up, and I always felt like we always got to a point inside of each of the collectives where people weren't satisfied or they didn't get their voice heard enough. So then the collectives would break up. So I kept on being in all these collectives, and I was like, man, I don't see a collective that really, the models that we were doing weren't working. So when I moved out here, I got into a program at the Adia School, and so I just came to train for a while. I thought I was going to be here for 5 years. I've been here for 13. I thought I was going to train for a while and then go back to the Bay. And we just didn't get our financial aid checks on time. So at a point I was like, we gotta make some money. Like, I don't even know how to just be here without, you know, like I'm grown. Like, can we eat? So then I started gathering all the like runaway slaves. I was like, hey, y'all want to go do some shows? You know what I'm saying? So that's how we began. So I was like, let's go do some shows real quick over here. And so it also, when it started to turn into something and people started to give us gigs, I was like, oh wait, I could make money, because you know it was always my medicine. This was always the thing that kept me, you know, not from going crazy. Like, I do not deserve to be incarcerated. I do not deserve to be hospitalized. Like, I am an artist, you know. So I didn't know that you could like, I was just a bumpkin. I didn't know you could like have a whole career as a choreographer. So when that started to happen, I was like, okay. And it started to happen. So I started to look for elders, and for some reason I couldn't find any of an older generation, especially of Black folks, like that had their own companies that would like even just talk to me about how you do that. Like, how do you become like a real business, like a real company, not just like some friends making some dance here and there. So I was like, well, what if me and all my peers get together and then we kind of like mentor ourselves? But then I was finding it was so like New York, you know, rat race, survival of the fittest. Everybody was on their grind and hustle, that nobody was like really down to come and build and be like, I'm having, you know, I need this, can you have this, and kind of like build this collective. So Ase Dance Theatre Collective, that was the initial dream. Like, we would all come together and we would mentor ourselves, because we were having this missing generation of mentors, because it seemed like our elders had such a hard time getting things that they didn't want to give us no information. They didn't have time, because they had been working so hard to get what they had. They didn't have time to lift us up. So, you know, after I stuck around for a while, I did get to a place where I do have some elders, but in that initial time, there was a bunch of us that were kind of all around the same 25, 24, you know, and we couldn't find the elders. So I was trying to reach out to people, but everybody was still trying to do their own thing. So when we started to progress as a performance body, the family or nation that has become Ase really was because I just opened myself up, and I really was like, I need to be a part of the community. If I'm gonna stay here, like, I can't just be in this world by myself. I wasn't raised like that. You know, I really do need people, and like, everybody does need something from everybody, but sometimes I just want to sit and eat some food, you know what I'm saying, and kick it. And so it turned out that everybody else kind of needed the same thing, and then we realized, you know, that it wasn't really a lot of young people our age studying traditional folklore and learning it in performance context and cultural context, as well as taking it and kind of like chopping and screwing it, you know, like taking the ring shout and then like telling our stories that happened like yesterday, you know, into these kind of tools that our ancestors had given us. And so what was different about my collective model, I think, is that everybody has input, you know, when I'm in my process, but I really feel that all of this has been a gift from my ancestors. Like, they have a bunch to say, you know, they were on me with this white Jesus and this shallow water, and I have these dreams and I see and hear all this stuff, and if I don't do it, I can't sleep. So, and I tried, because people are like, oh, you know, that's a controversial piece, and, you know, and I was like, I'm not attacking anybody's religion. I'm just saying the iconography has had some kind of effect, and I just want people to think Just think about it. Please, I'm not dissing Jesus. Jesus was a homie. You know what I'm saying? It's sick, well, sick. So, but, and then a lot of people are like, Adia, you know, you don't get things because you say things. And I'm like, but Bob Marley said things. Jake Brown said things. So why are we so afraid to say things, you know? And Mandela just passed, and it's like, who really is going to sit up in the jail for what they believe in now? Like, who's really going to go hard? Like, people went hard. You know what I'm saying? For your people. And so I figure at this point, if I haven't gotten like the resources of sustainability for my company, I'm gonna say what I want. I'm 37 years old. I'm about to be 40 in a couple of years. I'm somebody's mama. I can say what I want. If I didn't get it yet, I might not get it, so I might as well go out with a bang.
OG, triple OG right here.
It's the gathering of the meat.
I don't even know what I'm supposed to talk about anymore.
What do you want to talk about now?
Yeah, I mean,
I was talking about collectives and community and whatnot, but whatever you're feeling now.
Ashe on Ashe. Okay, so I'm going to talk about Body Ecology Performance Ensemble because we are repping in the space right now, and it's Body Ecology is one of the reasons why I'm able to sit here right now. So I have to be honest about that. So Body Ecology Performance Ensemble is a crew of women, and any one person in the ensemble is able to take an idea and brilliantly germinate it and make it grow into something beautiful. It's happening right now. The folks who are part of Body Ecology are business owners, are designers, are visual artists, are thinkers and scholars and trailblazers in their own right. And most of these folks are in their mid-20s. Very, very brilliant people. Audrey walked in the room. She's an associate artist. And Taja, who will be at Hip Hop Kitchen on Saturday. And Kel's repping Newark's got something going on this weekend, right? I mean, everybody is like fully actualizing their own lives. So when we come together, when we choose to come together, and it's difficult sometimes for us to make that choice, but when we choose to come together, nothing short of brilliance always happens. Always happens. What you saw tonight was the beginning of some things that I'm thinking about, and some of the sisters from Body Ecology humbly came forward to say, oh, we'll help you think about some things. But when we're in a space to build body ecology work, it is a process. It is a marriage of sorts. It is, you know, a lot of things, conflict, love, food, you know, all kinds of things have happened as we've been walking this road. Good things, necessary things. I think sometimes we think family is supposed to be easy and that we're just supposed to fall into it and like each other all the time. And it's not necessarily that. It's not that. But it is a commitment to something bigger than us, which is the work, which is the story, which is the journey. I think that's what's keeping, I really don't know what's keeping us being able to work together, I'm gonna be honest. But we seem to some kind of way pull it together every spring and decide to work from spring, summer, and fall, and we take the whole winter season off. We take a hiatus every year. But our process of building a family is really nothing separate from what you would do to sustain your own family. Like what? What would you do in your family to stay if you wanted to be healthy? Eat. Eat. Yes. Sing. What else? Pray. Communicate. Hang out. Yeah. Give people that fall back. Fall back. Taja back there talking about fall back. Tell the truth. I would say truth telling is probably one of the hardest things to do because, you know, yeah, it's hard when people throw your shit up in your face. But, you know, whatever. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes we just roll our eyes at each other and keep moving. You know, it's all a part of the way Black women communicate and other folks. But really, that is what I think is sustaining us. And we are real grassroots, y'all, like real grassroots. We get $300 to do something, we literally split it 8 ways. All right, here go your $10, here go your $10. All right, enjoy your dinner. Okay, see you next week. That's it. No one, you know, we have to, so there's some decisions that need to be made. I feel like we're all talking about being on like the precipice of what's next, how to sustain. And I think, you know, with all transparency, who knows what will happen with body ecology between now and, you know, next year, but we choose together. We choose together. So, you know, there's some things I would like to see. I would like to see us go on a tour, like a, you know, southern wide tour, because most of us have roots in the South in some way. And I would love to see us be able to build our next body of work, which we're in the process of doing. Like we were doing that right before hiatus. But there are folks in the group who really have things that they need to do. So how do we honor, you know, each person's own, you know, specific journey while honoring the collective work? And I think flexibility is really key. Flexibility is really key. So yeah, that's about it for me.
I have a couple more things that I want to ask you all as a group, and then I think we'll open it up some more. Do you want? Yeah. Can we pass one more water this way? I like this microphone. Bye. Thank you for coming, class. Yeah. Good cue. That was good. That was good. Excellent.
You got it? Yeah.
Yeah, you can sign up to the mailing list right outside the door. These women will be presenting work again in May at Bronx Academy of Arts. We're more intimate now. If you're in like a back space, you can move forward if you want to. Yeah. Great.
They're not coming back.
So, so one thing that's come up a few times are the ideas of survival and healing, and freedom I think has come up, which feels connected to that. And I'm wondering about how survival and healing make their way conceptually into process. Like how does the work you're making use those as impetus, or how does that become a part of process? The words have come up a few times, so I'm curious about what that means in your work, survival and healing. Yeah.
So I think, and other Ashe people can say things too. I think it's really important to hear from like the wholesome village. I think that, like, I can tell when everybody's broke in rehearsal because we got this song called Penny in My Pocket about being broke and we need to get our money. So when everybody's in rehearsal and they sing it, we get caught up in the field, they be like, my rent is due. And I'd be like, oh, y'all need money. Like, you know, because I think that all of the work that, I think of my pieces as like spells, right? So, or like I have all these children and they're all different ages. So when I needed to, when we needed to wear white and dance about our duality of being African and all people of African descent, and also many of us coming from the tradition of Christianity, like there was a time when our spirits needed to do that. When, you know, Trayvon was killed, that still hasn't come out of me yet, because like I said, I'm getting to a place in my life where I'm like, I've seen this happen enough times in my life now where I just don't know how to feel, because I remember being young and being like, ugh, and then I remember being like so sad and then being like, even more, you know. So I'm in a place now where I'm like, how can we retell our stories? You know, we need to tell these stories over and over again, but how are we gonna retell these stories? So I feel like, and sometimes the collective members, they bring it. They're like, I need to. There was a point in Ashe, because one point we were all women. First of all, we started off very young, and we were like, Ailey kids. And then there was a shift where it became an all-female company, and I didn't mean for it to, but we were all kind of like entering our Saturn returns and going through breakups and shaving our head and like just getting our Medusa on, and then kind of started to turn on each other like, what, in rehearsal? So then we ended up doing this piece called The Truth About Medusa, because we're like, okay, we have every generation of Ashe, and we're about in the 5th generation, has decided that the most important thing is massive displays of Black love and culture, and no matter how stank or crazy it gets, or like, you know, like, what? We all have decided that this is the most important thing. So it's never gotten to a point in the company where there's any kind of like the pettiness just gets weeded out, because if it's stank like that, that energy just makes itself away, because everybody knows like that our ancestors, not only are we in the room, but our ancestors want to be, like my ancestors want to be with her ancestors. They want to talk, they want to dance with each other, they want to sing with each other. So, and the feeling that we have the moment when we take flight together is such a powerful feeling. It's just like the best drugs ever. So, and we all know that. So nobody wants to give up those moments of ecstasy behind some little petty whatever, you know? And so, like I said, we used to be like the young buck dancer, leg, and then it got to a point where it was like all women, and we was kind of like, we used to get on stage and just scream and like paint ourselves black and black. And then we started to kind of soften up and mature and get in relationships and find love, and then we put on ink sometimes, and we put some gold, you know, so then it started to shift. And now what's happened is many of us are having children with each other. So in our family this year, this will be our 3rd baby, the next progression of Ashe, and then there was one with me, and you know, so we've all like learned about giving birth, home births, and been with each other when there's C-sections, and you know, so now there's little ones. There's like a bunch of little ones that are now starting to learn all the songs. They're starting to learn all the dances, and we marry each other. We bless each other's babies. There's songs for each of the babies. There's songs for each other. There's songs for our fights. When we get in fights, it's okay, we gotta sing it out, let's put it in the art. And so we're still, the people from the place, going through the thing. Like, we're still trying to heal ourselves and be okay. So sometimes it gets stank, like she was saying, and you have to, instead of turning on each other, we turn to the art, the thing that we love, because ultimately we love each other. You know, it's just love and hurt feelings, and that's like a source of most beats, just love, you know, and you hurt my feelings, you know? So we've just been able, I think Ashe is a space where we've been able to come and grow up together, you know, come of age together, fight together, love together, all these different things. And it's really special, because every time I try to be like, okay, it's time to move on, then it's like, I can't do what I do. You know,
Can you talk about survival and healing in body ecology performance ensembles process?
Hi again, everyone.
It's just going
of course. Survival, healing, and body ecology process. So I was so very angry this past winter season, fall into winter season, and in my mind I'm just like, I gotta dance. I want to go to the club, can't really afford class, there are free classes, but I can't really afford class. And something happened the moment that we got into, you know, the church hall space that we were rehearsing in for this piece, that just felt like, you know, something unwinding, and to just be cat-cowing it and stomping and shouting and rolling and touching and breathing and just everything, you know? And I think that that place of scream, of Medusa, of, you know, love, of just all these things, to physically be able to express that is really essential and important to my life. So I can say that definitely in terms of healing and just making sense of things that there are no words for, that there are no thoughts even to really sort of put my mind around, you know. There are certain things that my body just has to say. And this has been a space for the last, 4 years at this point. Almost 5 years. We started out in a basement studio space, just having a class. And 5 years later, we're still, kicking it, dancing it, screaming it, laughing it, getting it back together. And it definitely is that family space, or that space of understanding myself with like 7 mirrors around me. I think is the best way to speak about the healing element of it, and the survival element, because there are lots of things to be angry about, but just in terms of growing up, I'm 25, moving into a new phase of adulthood, of womanhood, all these things, and where are the spaces, for me to be like, every time I go into, the deep I'm on a slave ship. Every time I start taking a bath, I start, feeling like an ancestor touching me. You know what I mean? There aren't very many places where you can just say that and not be looked at like you're crazy, and not be, seen as someone, who is living in a make-believe kind of world, So I feel like survival needs sanity for me in the space of ecology. To have, again, that mirror reflection, to be like, you're here, even though there's a lot of things happening in here, you're still here. And I know what you're talking about. I think even just that echo, that reverberation, that reflection, is an extension of myself, Can
you bring us some microphone?
It's like a relay now.
So, I actually want to ask Kika and Crystal to talk about this too, but I feel like the main thing, I feel like it's not a coincidence that everybody's talking about ancestors, but I feel like definitely for our work, I think that the space is a space for, and we overuse like safe space, safer space, but I think just a spiritual vulnerability that I think really happens like when you open yourself up to possession, to be, frank. And so I think that in order to be able to do that in front of people who are strangers, you have to surround yourself with people that you love and trust and know that they have your back. And so I think that that's one of the main things that we have established with each other, through the process of working on the ring shout, and also just working with Adia, who's also a priestess and teaches Afro-Haitian dance, and as well as Afro-Cuban and Afro-Brazilian in the context. So I feel like we have that lineage, and then we also know that like we're coming here for this to happen, but we all have to do certain work to get to that point. And I think a lot of that work has to do with just like trusting everybody else that's there to not let you fall, essentially. And then what we were saying about the political piece is similar, where I think that, I think we do become, I don't want to say numb, because I don't feel like I'm numb to any of what's happening right now or has been happening throughout, our lifetimes and the lifetimes of our ancestors. But I do think that using your spiritual vulnerability to also talk about what's happening in the political reality is also, it could be scary, like Adia said. And I think that when you have people around you, like you said, saying you're not crazy and it's okay and this has to be said, then you say it and you don't give a fuck, because you're like, I know that at least the people that are in this circle right here have my back. Even if the people at the Whitney are like in shock and not moving, the people that are in this circle understand the urgency of this at this moment. So I don't know if you all have anything to say.
Hi, I'm Francisca Kika Chagas Gutierrez, and I'm late to the conversation. But thank you for welcoming me. I am a student of Adia Sharpley. I've been her student since 2001, and have had the honor of being a part of Run Mary Run, Rashida Bumbray's project for the past almost 3 years. And it's been highly developmental, I guess, spiritually, more than spiritually, rather, I should say. And I guess we're talking about community and
healing and survival.
So the first thing that crossed my mind when I heard the sister speak is that at the last ring shout, and some of you were there at Barnard, the ancestors literally took me out. They threw water all over the floor and took me on my ass. And I'm a big girl, so I went down. But just as quick, the sisterhood had me back on my feet. And it was symbolic, obviously, because of the power of sisterhood, and more so the power of sisterhood in this age of just so much challenges around sisterhood, and how we conceptualize that, like who's really down. I mean, just as a blanket comment. I see that sisterhood sometimes thrown in my face because of the deep complications of skin and hair politics. And I mean, ultimately, as we can see, especially for our collective, the Dance Theatre Collective, and working with Rashida, is that those politics can be washed away, and they can be fortified even by using the foundation of African philosophy and traditional concepts of womanhood. And then how those relationships deal with our brothers, our families, our communities on multi-levels, especially for the collective, as we also come from around the country. Like I said, different nationalities. My mother's from Mexico, and that history in the context of the African diaspora is essential. So just ultimately, I just, for whatever critiques or praises that are out there, we know now, right here, right now, that this work is essential, obviously, if not for ourselves and for our families. And, you know, if we just start with that simple task, which is not necessarily a simple task, because of the, you know, so many social complications that so many of our families have as displaced indigenous people. And when I talk about that, I'm talking about people of African descent in the U.S. who were forced into slavery in the New World, as well as Chicanos and Native Americans. So I think I'm a little worded out at the moment, but thank you.
Hey, can we all just like stand up for a second? And while you're standing up, like if there are ideas bubbling up or things you've been wondering about, like we're gonna have, I think, a space and moment for that. Maybe turn to somebody who's near you, whom you may not know, and just talk about something that's come up or that's bubbled up in this moment, in this conversation that we've had so far. Just somebody who's near you, introduce yourself, so that there's no stranger anymore.
Yeah, what kind of roles do you choose to kind of seek out?
I don't know. I guess by people. I'm usually a king or a slave. Either one. That's right.
Why haven't you got this? Where it's evolved to right now. It was all that.
Yes.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. 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 Welcome I knew y'all wanted to talk. And I knew we weren't going to get everybody's question answered, so let's give some time where everybody gets to say something to at least somebody, because, you know, we have limited time, and they think that I run everything on time, so I got to live up to my reputation. Great. I don't know, what's bubbled up for you all? Do you all have, yes, thoughts and questions?
I have a question.
Here,
it's
I'm gonna give you this
because
it's so much fun.
Okay. Because I was thinking about bubble, because New York is kind of a bubble, right?
Yeah.
And we think that we're so hip and so cool, and you know, the times, you know, gay marriage and everything's cool. But when you leave New York and you leave the U.S., you know, with this work, what kind of bubble do you create for yourself?
Can I? You're asking them, or?
Whoever, I'm asking the table.
Okay.
Hi. I'm like, oh, my name is Wimoto. I'm a new recruit to Ase Dance Collective. This is my first time performing with them. That spoke to me because I just came back to the U.S. and I was gone for 4 years. I was in Germany for 2 years and I was in Hungary for 2 years. I left because I'm also a member of another collective called Community Education, and that is a funk soul hip hop collective. So it was music that ended up taking me to see the world and working with, purely by accident, different marginalized communities all over the planet that have been touched by hip hop, and hip hop seems to provide this kind of structure for activism, for political expression of anybody who's oppressed anywhere, regardless of color or anything. They put their own little spin on it. I haven't gone anywhere in the world where there isn't hip hop, some form of hip hop, and that it's not about expressing some kind of struggle. In Germany, it was all Turkish people. It was all Turkish hip hop. It was good. I highly recommend it. In Hungary, it was Roma. So my recruitment into community education was accidental, and my involvement in Ase is also accidental. They were having an audition. I went, honestly, for a free dance class. That's why I showed up. I was like, I'll go, and I was getting, you know, like, oh, it'll be all right. I mean, I looked them up, and I saw what they were doing. I was like, this looks cool, but I was like, I don't know what's happening. And I had only been back in the U.S. for like a couple of months at that point. But I came back because I wanted to come home, which was not the attitude I had when I left the U.S. I left looking for home, and I was basically thinking I was never going to come home or never come back to the U.S., that home was going to be elsewhere. So in terms of creating this bubble, what happens when you're outside of all of this, outside of this city and outside of this context, is a kind of, I think, cultural boot camp. You cannot have any cultural laziness of any kind because you are the only one like yourself. In my particular, where I went in the world, the only one like myself for miles and miles in any direction. So the only one who looks like me, the only one with this particular shade, the only everything. So it's a bubble because you just sort of have to survive. It's also a bubble because of the way people will relate to you. There's certain things you just can't be in on because of the way you look. They just won't ever, you will always be a thing. You will always be representative of a whatever, their idea. There's never going to be like a, I'm dealing with you as a person. They just can't. It's too exciting. And Germany was just like heavy with exoticism, so I was always on. I was always performing, even if I'm at the supermarket buying milk. It's like, look, she's black. Supermarket. Wow. And everything you do is so authentic, and it's really, really exhausting. So the some of the bubble is what people put you in, and some of the bubble is yours to sort of like try to preserve in a way, like I'm gonna put these ingredients in and keep what's essential. Some of the bubble is also learning what is essential once you are pulled out of like everything that is familiar. Yeah.
I think Adia has something to say too, and I'm curious about in relationship to this work, which all of you have referenced in terms of historically, where your historical references in the work, and also all of you have talked about the South too.
So when I went to Haiti, I was like 22 years old, and they'd be like, oh, Tigui Belsa, you know, like you're a little gray girl. And so whenever in the United States is one of the only places where I'm allowed to be black, which is who I feel like I am. Like, I love being black. I love the construct of it. I love the absorbs all light, reflects all, like, it's a concept. It's not just, you know, a construct. So but whenever I go anywhere else, I'm not black, I'm something else. And so for a long time I was like, man, these people calling me great. And then when I went to Africa, you know, everywhere I went, I'm like a weirdo. So it was like, they thought I was a white man that thought he was an African woman country to go study African dance. But then they were like, you do that when I danced, when I taught class to the national company, they were like, that's African dance. I was like, word. But you're a man, you're a white man. you seem like an African. I was like, so you know, I always feel like I'm in the 7th grade again, and I'm kind of like that weird art kid, but kind of hip. And so that's been the thing that like I found the other weird art kids that are kind of hip, you know. And then when I went to Ireland, they were like, why do you have this connection to Africa? But you're American, but then you think you're black, but why are you so light? And then your people are from the South, but you're from the West, and you live in New York. What? Like, but then you do Afro-Haitian dance, but you're an American Negro? So I'm, you know, so I think that, you know, at a point I was like, you know what? Gray is saucy. I these and I just find the other gray areas in the African diaspora because nobody is like one thing or the other. You have the traditionalists that are like, no, your work is not pure. And I was like, okay, I'll do the pureness. And then you have the contemporary people that are like, no, it's not contemporary, that's African. And I'm like, okay, so yeah, I'll just be the gray area, you know? And I found the other gray areas. And that's how we roll. Whether I go somewhere, wherever I go, I'm a gray area. I just got that. In 2008, I was like, I'm gray in Africa. I'm gray in Cuba. I'm gray in Brazil. I'm gonna be gray.
Gray is the new black.
So to go to your question about when you leave the New York City bubble, I really do think New York needs to get over itself. I'm not from here, and I think that there's some great things that happen here, but there is the rest of the world, the rest of the universe. And I know, I feel like I just grew up a little bit saying that out loud in New York. But, you know, I think for those of us who were raised, who were mentored as young ones to be creative, to be artists, being here is just another blip on the planet. Like, I was not gonna come here and not be an artist. I was born that way. So I think that, you know, what's interesting though is when I go home to Texas or to Louisiana, it's like, oh, Ebony does all of that cool shit in New York, but you need to, you know, pick these beans and, you know, clean these chitlins. It's real shit that's happening around in the world. And I think that that's what keeps, for me, makes me understand, like, you know, that art making process is family making process, it's community process, it's activism, it's everything all together. Because most of us, you know, live in communities and families where we are one of many that are doing, you know, lots of cool shit. Yeah. So I think when I leave the country and go other places, it's really interesting how, you know, I'm coming in as the artist, but art is just is. Like, you're not special because you can kick your leg up. Everybody can kick their legs up. That's what we do. We kick our legs up. So I think this thing, you know, for me, it's been like, how does art, you know, how is art streamlined into a life practice? So that it's not, I'm over here being an artist and over here I'm everything else, but like, where is the role, what is the role of creativity and art making in everyday life? And I think in other places in the world, it's expected that art is everywhere. It is not crazy for a group of 50 people to get up and sing because they appreciate the food you just cooked. That's not weird. You're supposed to. You're supposed to praise the people that are feeding you. So it's something here about this bubble of New York where it's like, I am hot. I'm a superstar. I'm this. I'm me. My shit. I did this all by myself. It's something different when you go other places, even just outside of New York City, where it's like, we understand that we wouldn't be here if we didn't do it together. And we honor our elders, and we honor our young people, and we honor everybody that's in the pot making it happen, because we couldn't do it alone. You would not be able to kick your leg up like that if somebody didn't show you how. Okay. And that's my thing.
I think we could take a couple more questions if, okay.
This is kind of I guess, two questions that kind of, I feel, molded into one. First of all, when you were talking about collectivism, one thing that has occurred to me, and it's kind of been a theme that I've been kind of grappling with, is this idea that, you know, nowadays I kind of feel like everyone operates under this pretense because, for a variety of reasons, one being technology. Like, if you have your smartphone and you have your laptop, as an artist, you're almost expected to be responsible for everything on your own. Like, there used to be a time when there was someone who did marketing, and you just sat and played your guitar or did whatever it was you did. Now, you know, you're supposed to be your own photographer, videographer, you're supposed to be the person who books the gigs, you're supposed to be everybody at once. And my personal opinion is, there was a reason they didn't do it that way. Like, that didn't work. You can't really do funny people. Like, you can try, and a lot of us do try, but it's kind of faulty. So yes, it's very whack. Thank you. So I guess the other piece of it, that's one piece, being that, you know, how do we remedy this feeling that we all, and I think New York, I've only been here about like 4 years, and it has been my experience that, you know, this is a place where everyone definitely is like an island. Everybody kind of has their own space they operate in. They got their stuff together. They'll check you out, but they're not really trying to penetrate. Like, you know, you'll see people on the street, they'll scan you, but you're in your own space. Everyone's kind of in their own world. And this piece about tradition, which I kind of think is lost, which comes into play with, I think, how we talk about, you know, mentorship. I feel like that's something that's lost too. Like, people aren't necessarily bringing the younger people in. And so I think these things together are a big problem with us. So that the collective piece, I guess, once again, my question is, collectively, how do we get past that, past this isolation that we've kind of created for ourselves? If you know, in your experience through your work, building these things, how do you get to that place where you get beyond that? Because, I'm sorry, one last thing that just occurred to me was just that, you know, like, I was just, while we were having the break, I was talking to Dean in front of me, and we were talking about this idea of how, you know, the traditionalists on one side, which you had mentioned, right? So I'm thinking, you know, you spend all these years, you study for years and years and years. If you're a musician, I'm a musician, so that's my thing, so I'm going to keep going there. But, you know, you learn all your Charlie Parker licks and all of your Coltrane licks, and you have this vast catalog of information that you have to absorb and assimilate. And people kind of get stuck there. Some people do. You kind of get absorbed in that, and then you forget about, okay, but what about now? What about the future? And then you kind of have the other side where they're not necessarily tapping into that. So, you know, there's people who are focusing or coming from that very raw place of emotionally, energetically expressing themselves, may not be schooled, may not be trained, and they're not necessarily going back and absorbing all those traditional things that make us stronger, right? That make it so that we can progress and not have to learn everything all over again. Okay, I don't want to ramble. So my point, once again, how do we get back to those places? How do we do that?
I'm gonna grab this mic, and while I'm doing that, so if you all can think about what of that, because that's, I think, several questions. What of that you might want to address? I think there's, okay, great.
And this is just what I feel like Spirit needs me to say right now, is that when you pray, like, you know, priests in every tradition, when you pray, they always say you gotta be specific in your prayer, right? You gotta be specifically like, I want the black shoes, please give me food, I want beans tonight, right? So it's difficult because, you know, like I come from a single parent home. My father left the home, so I saw my mother doing everything. So I was like, I can do everything. But now that I'm a mother, I was like, I can't do everything. You know what I'm saying? And I'm blessed to have a very good husband, but I'm just, you know, so you get in a space, especially when you see like something that is your dream and your medicine coming alive, and you're really doing it, you're just going on a dream. So I'm in that place now where I'm like, I have to be specific in my prayer. I need a staff. These are the staff people I need, and I have to go to Ase because we don't get paid a lot for what we do. And now with this generation of my company, because I do have a elder by like a body that is now going into the kind of mother mentorship area. Like we are the dancers that I have now. Like 3 of them tonight was their first show, and they're younger than me, which was different because it used to be me and my homegirls and my peers, and we were just getting it. But now we're mothers and we have children, and I can't do everything. So now I have to be able to be specific in my prayer and say, Shada, I need you to come to my house and carry these costumes. I need 2 of you to meet me here. And you have to learn how to do that, especially when you've just been trudging through uphill, like, I can do everything for so long. You have to learn how to be specific in your prayers, and you also have to be able to reach out to people and delegate in a manner that's going to get what you need done and let go. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's where I am in my career right now, is that's why I'm not making work every 5 minutes, because I made so much stuff that I'm just like, those resources, I need to work differently, and I need to figure out how. And so I'm at this place where I'm like, now I'm in a position where I'm becoming a mentor. I see the way they look at me. I have now come to a place in my rehearsal where I'm like,
okay, how many of y'all been to Africa? You did this? Okay, you know when you, cause you know, when we used to rehearse, we used to like rehearse till we was purple in the face and our ancestors was like, yeah, you know, and like, they're like, oh, Adia, that piece was nice. I was like, this piece is 25 minutes, that's the first 2 sections. Let's get it. You know what I'm saying? It's just generationally, it's different. And so now that we are mothers and we are coming to a place of mentorship, getting advanced degrees, all these different things, we have grown up in Ashe knowing this was excited about, like, we about to be the mamas. Like, and then now we do have a younger generation in Ashe, helping us raise our children, being a part of everything, because we didn't have that. We had each other. That's why we were scraping and pushing and and now we know that we need to delegate things. And now that we're more mature, we see like, oh yeah, in order for Ashe to keep going, there has to be, we do need people doing these things because we can't do it, because we're mentoring them, we're trying to be better. Everybody needs a job, right? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if that answered it, but be specific in the the summer.
You asked specifically about where are the mentors? Is that what you asked? Was that one of the questions?
If you have something to say about that.
Mentorship, like
mentorship,
that,
yeah.
How that's kind of been lost and how we can kind of get back to that place.
I'm gonna say to that in particular that folks who are in the capacity and have the space to mentor are typically really busy and have a lot going on. And I think one as a person who gets asked oftentimes to mentor folks, it is a reciprocal relationship. And when you come to the table wanting you know who you want your mentor to be. When you go to the table to say, hello, I'm looking for mentorship, come like it's a job. They don't got time to waste. They have time to train. You need to, on the job training, you want to shadow, be specific, say that, because what it ends up being is that sometimes people get burned out on being mentors. I'm gonna be I have been burned out and burned by being a mentor. It is, and folks need to understand that I'm not folks. I'm asking you to be clear that when you go to your mentor, come with a resume, come with your list of ideas and what you're ready to do, know their work, and be prepared to amplify what's already happening in the field, what they're doing, because that way you can spend more time actually getting some training, being able to explore ideas and challenges. If you are lucky, you will get someone who actually will make space and room for you to be, off the record, but oftentimes that is few and far between, for folks who are fully immersed in their careers. When you find that person, you need to be thankful, because they don't have to do it, especially folks who teach all the time or in the community all the time, making work all the time, traveling here and there, families and other, So I think because you want to be mentored, you're already 10 steps ahead of the game. Because a lot of folks feel like, well, I don't need I'm fly, I can do it, And that missing that process and that journey with someone who it might only be a few steps ahead of you, but has covered some road, it can actually make a difference, And folks can open doors or not, based on if they feel like you have potential. So, like the folks in body ecology, I have 10 years on some of them, 12 years on some of them. And it has become, I looked up and I was like, oh shit, where did that happen? Where's my mentor? But it's serious when someone says, I see something in you and I'm going to invest in you. So keep looking for those people. And I'll say this too. You also talked about having to be the publicist and this person and that person. It comes with the territory. you will find that sometimes people who've been in this work 20 years, still write their own press releases, still sweep the floor, still, they're the ones who are willing and humble to do the behind the scenes work as well as standing in the spotlight. And typically, have some longevity because they understand all of the aspects of the road. Even at one point, you won't have to write your own press releases. Somebody will come and deliver to you all the green M&Ms that you asked for in your grind, right? But until then, be on your grind. Just do the work. And eventually, whatever's supposed to happen for you will happen for you. But you still, some people feel like they can skirt around that. There are no shortcuts. If it's your lifestyle, if you want to be famous, then you can, do tricks and, gimmicks and whatever, be the neo-soul hippie, whatever they want you to package you to be. But if this is for the duration of your life, and this is what you are tuned to be in this lifetime, then you will be sweeping the floor sometimes. Yeah.
I just want to talk about mentorship because I feel like I'm so blessed to have a mentor in my professor who we all worked with, Adia Sharpley. And she is old school, and she does teach us that you do have to sweep the floor. Yeah. Wash the dishes. And that's actually part of your Ashe. That's how you actually, by doing that work, you're actually elevating your own spirit. So I don't think we should ever look down on any aspect of our calling. But I will also say that I think that, being up under someone for a long time, you learn so much. And it also allows you that when you do walk out on your own, you have had this training to say, I know how to do all these things. I know how to write the press release. I know how to, talk about my work. I know how to edit my video. All these things, I think because you've done them for someone else in some cases, then when it's your turn, you're clear about that. And I also would say that I feel like we actually have sort of a combined situation with Adia because she's our professor, she's our, the head of the dance company, and she also is a priestess, and so some of us are also her godchildren. And so, in that context, many of the people in the collective have actually lived with her, for years at a time. So I think it's a really old world kind of model. And I think I'm just now, after 20 years of knowing her, working with her, starting to really realize the benefit. And, also she's passing the baton to me in a really intentional way. And so I'm, extremely humbled by that. And also I see how much work it is. Just on the emotional plane of like dealing with so many different personalities and, all those things that she sort of did. And I've done in like my small iterations of works and, as a curator and blah, blah, blah. But I think when you start to work with a collective, and Adia, you've been doing that for, so many years, even as a young person, I think. Anyway, I'm just humbled, and I just wanted to also give a nod to say that it is great when you actually do have a mentor. And I don't take that for granted.
I have a mentor who was always like, and be on time. And we're getting to that place in the evening where we can't continue any longer. But I want to thank you for your attentiveness. It's a very attentive group of folks, and I really appreciate that energy into the space. I really appreciate these women who will continue to have a relationship with Dancing While Black this year. We're producing a concert of their finished work in May at Bronx Academy of Arts and Dance, which will also be, we'll also have a conversation as part of it. Dancing While Black is continuing to work on dialogue, on production, on supportive process without any intention to have a product at the end of it. If you're interested in knowing more, we're on Facebook, we have Twitter, and I have somebody who helps me with this because I'll be 40 this year and I don't do all this stuff, but somebody else who's young and talented, Nia Austin Edwards, who is not here tonight, is holding it down with the, so social media. See, I don't even know, what was the word again? Social media strategy. That's 2 words. See, that's more than I know.
We have a mailing list outside if you want to sign up, and I just want to thank these women again for sharing your work and more and more.